Today we are understanding how ESOPs or equity stock options work for employees as well as for companies. Firstly, ESOPs are not shares of the company, they are rights to acquire shares of the company in the future. So when a company offers you ESOPs, it means it's giving you the right that in the future you can buy those shares. And you also have to earn the right to buy those shares over a period of time. So for example, if your company offers you 100 ESOPs, in a vesting period of 4 years and a cliff of 1 year. So you get 100 ESOPs in a vesting period of 4 years and a cliff of 1 year, which means that for the first 1 year, you will not get any ESOP at all till the time you don't complete that 1 year period. And immediately on the completion of the 1 year period, you get 25% of the ESOPs which were supposed to vest in the 4 year period, which means as soon as you complete 12 months, you get 25. And then on an annual basis, you keep getting 25 shares till the time you complete 4 years and you get 100 stock options. So the 4 year is the vesting period, 1 year is the cliff, which is the minimum time period you need to be working in the company to be able to earn any option at all. Now, the vesting may not necessarily be annually, it can also be quarterly, which means at every 3 month interval. It could also be monthly, it could be half yearly, and the vesting does not necessarily have to be equally over the 4 year period. It could also be that in the first year you earn 10%, in the second year you earn 20%, third year you own 30%, and the fourth year you own 40% of your ESOPs. A company may do this to want employees to stick around longer. So these terms completely depend on the ESOP policy. Now, how these ESOPs are taxed in the hands of employees. Remember that ESOPs is only a right to buy that share. So you can buy that share in the future. For example, you have vested ESOPs, now you want to buy it. The policy would state an exercise price, which could say, for simplicity's sake, be 10 rupees. And the value of your employer share that day could be, say, 1000 rupees, which means you'll get a share of 1000 rupees value by only paying 10 rupees, which is your exercise price. On that day, the 990 worth of gain that you've made, or you've actually got an asset of 1000 rupees by just paying 10 rupees, which means you've actually gotten an income of 990. That 990 is subject to tax under the head of income from the head salaries, and your employer would also be deducting TDS on it. Now remember that you haven't received cash, you've just received an asset worth 1000. So from your in-hand salary, the employer will be deducting more amount as TDS. So your in-hand salary in that month will reduce because they're also deducting tax on account of the value of the ESOP which you've got. So you haven't received anything in cash, but the tax deduction has been in cash, which, owing to the tax structure, prevents a lot of people from actually exercising their ESOPs. Okay. Now, in the future, when you sell those shares, for example, your vested ESOPs, you've exercised them, you've bought those shares. Now, in the future, you want to sell those shares at a time when the value of your company share is increased to 2000. At that time, the capital gain would also be taxed, and that capital gain would be 2000 minus 1000 and not 2000 minus 10. You've already paid tax on the 1000 minus 10. So the capital gain will be 2000 minus 1000. The rate would depend on short-term capital gain or long-term, depending on the period of holding for that share. Now, for startups who have been recognized by the DIPP and have a recognition from the Interministerial Board, employees of such startups, when they exercise the share, they may not have to pay tax, which means the employee would not deduct TDS right then. The taxation of it is deferred to the earliest of 5 years from the exercise of the option, or if you resign from the company or you exit the company, or if you sell those exercised shares. So where the employer deducts TDS, it may not deduct TDS if it is a recognized startup by DIPP with IMB recognition. It will get taxed at earliest of these three events. This is ESOP taxation in the hands of employees. Now, coming to how startups can set up ESOP policies. The process is that you need to draft an ESOP policy with various rights, obligations, conditions on when they will vest, how they will vest, what will be the exercise price, what will be qualifying events when employees can actually sell those shares. For how much longer after an employee resigns from the company can he sell those shares? All these terms are supposed to be drafted. The startup should do it, of course, in consultation with a chartered accountant and a lawyer. Once that is drafted, there is a board resolution. In the board meeting, the board passes this ESOP policy. Then there is a shareholders meeting, an extraordinary general meeting, in which again the EGM passes the ESOP policy through a special resolution, after which filing with the ROC is carried out, which is you're informing the Ministry of Corporate Affairs that this is your ESOP policy and you've created an ESOP policy. After that, the employer will issue grant letters to all its employees saying this is the policy. According to the policy, you have received ESOPs worth this much, or say 100 ESOPs over a 4-year period. This is how it's all drafted. So this video is relevant not just for people who own ESOPs, but possibly also for startups who want to create ESOPs. What is the total percentage of ESOPs which is created on the cap table, which is the shareholders? So at any time where say a startup is raising like a seed round or maybe a series A round, the investors would recommend that an ESOP pool be created before the fundraise, because the investors don't want their equity to be diluted by the ESOP, which means that an ESOP pool of roughly about 8% to 15% of the total equity, fully diluted equity of the company would be created. How is that ESOP pool created? It is by unissued authorized capital. I understand a lot of these terms may be very technical, which is why take whatever you think is relevant for you right now, and of course if you want to understand more about it, you can reach out to me and I'll be happy to explain it over text or share links where you could understand this concept better. Share it with someone who may need it.